We'll go ahead and open up the June 2020 Park Board meeting. And in the packet that went out to electronically went out to everyone was the minutes from the last meeting. Has anyone caught any omissions or changes or corrections that should take place? And if not, the chair will call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. The minutes are approved. The first thing, Mike, that we had on the agenda was Burton Field and the project update on that, what you have.
Yeah. So I'll just go through, obviously, Burton Park is part of the CIP, Capital Improvement Plan for the parks for 2020. In the issue sheet, I listed out itemized expenditures, our expected expenditures for those upgrades. The reason I'm bringing it in front of the park board tonight is to review some of the changes in the layout. There was a study done back in 2012. A community survey was sent out and had a lot of good feedback. Based upon that feedback, an initial plan was developed, which was in your packet. It's the next sheet. Mm-hmm. And it shows, you know, a warming house concession with restrooms, one baseball field, the ice skating area, playscape area. And I don't know, Pat, maybe you can kind of inform us, but none of this really took shape. Was there just not much support at the time? No funding. Okay.
It came down to funding and priorities of where it could go. And also that was just coming out of the meltdown.
Sure.
And the economy wasn't really strong enough to look at making those kind of expenditures at that time.
Okay. Yep. So fortunately for us, obviously the city council supported putting some funds into that park to improve it. The estimated cost to do what the original plan has shown would be probably close to $700,000 to $800,000. Obviously nothing that we have in the CIP to do. So based upon that, I did do a updated layout, and I would like to have the park board comment on that and approve that updated layout so that I can start to accumulate some numbers, some quotes, and move forward with the project. Now, obviously, there are some organizations that utilize this park throughout the summer, so we probably look at early to late fall, as far as installation of the new fields and fencing and permanent hockey boards. So did everybody have a chance to kind of look at that?
Yeah, I was going to ask, can I just throw it up on the screen for people to look at? It might be
sure.
And then I was a little confused as to which was the 2012 and which was the current one because they weren't labeled. So I'm gonna throw it up here. Let's see.
There's the agenda.
Whoops. I think I just clicked on something, the wrong thing here. Whoops, sorry. Those are my lovely children.
Still for sale, are they?
Give you 2 for the price of 1, Pat.
Yep. No, I got some that don't work either.
Okay, cool. All right. So this is the concept from 2012.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Make that bigger.
So as you can see, it's one baseball diamond, the ice skating rink below, hockey boards to the east, and the playground structure, and then the actual concession stand was relocated to kind of the middle of the park there. Mm-hmm. And this is the concept that we didn't have funding for back in 2012, and if we were to try to accumulate or acquire funding to do this layout, it would be like I said, probably $750,000.
Mike, that was abandoned when we upgraded the warming house bathrooms.
Okay.
And put the money into that and went, that seemed to make the most sense to take us the furthest and accomplish what we wanted to, and then we could work around that.
Yeah, makes sense. So then, Paul, if you scroll down to the updated concept.
Yep.
This is just what you're scrolling
through. That's the survey there.
Yep. Pam was really active in that survey. Pam Brokaw, who's not here tonight, but
good. So this updated layout, you know, the biggest thing that I've heard since I've been here is the need for permanent hockey boards. And by, you know, flip-flopping the field so they're kitty corner from one another, we still keep the 2 baseball diamonds. And then we're able to get in permanent hockey boards to the west there, which is that pink oval. So that would actually be permanent hockey boards that are up year round. And so, you know, by doing that, you're able to have better ice and it's just a better structure overall. The red circle in the middle is just a ice skating rink. You know, we would berm up the snow around and create an ice skating rink. So it's nice to have the 2 facilities right next to each other for maintenance and for flooding purposes, so on and so forth. The field in the upper right-hand corner, that would be a Little League field, complete with an outfield fence. Yep. So it basically relocating the field, which is currently in the northwest corner, to the northeast corner. And then the current baseball field in the southwest corner would stay the same. We would do some regrading of that field that Paul has his cursor on, just to kind of clean it up, clean the banks up, bring in some lime, taper it to spruce it up a little bit, probably pour some pads for the bleachers, so on and so forth, and possibly build some dugouts. It all depends on what numbers come back at, but that's kind of the gist of the layout. Obviously, Pat, you had said that, you know, the restrooms were updated a few years ago, so those are, you know, it's in good order. And so I guess I'm just looking for, you know, general consensus. If the board likes this layout, that I can go out and, like I said, start accumulating some quotes and getting some numbers and like I said, progress for early to late fall construction.
And for those who don't know, the flooding of the rinks at Burton Field is a nightmare in the fall and in the winter, and that is so uneven. And the amount of ice they have to build up in some places is 6 to 8 inches thick before they can get it level. It'll be nice to have that whole area regraded and redone. Yeah,
we would create like a mini bowl where the water is held, instead of, because right now, like you said, Pat, I mean, the water will run off onto the street, onto 9th Street there, and then the sidewalk becomes icy, and so it's just that it is a difficult area to flood and maintain. And by doing some of the regrading and excavating work, which we have in the CIP for $15,000, I mean, that will not only address the baseball diamonds, but the hockey facility and skating rink as well.
I like the design a lot, Mike. I like how it's spaced out. I like that it keeps the 2 fields, where in the 2012 design it just had the 1. My only question on this guy is this outfield fence. Is that really necessary, or could we just have the diamond and sort of the outfield sort of like it is now?
Yeah, I mean, we don't necessarily need an outfield fence. I mean, it's that the current facilities don't have one right now.
No, never have.
I mean, part of me, I just like the open space. So if there's not a game going on, you just have, you know, because one of the other things I saw in the packet was like a possible lacrosse goal or something like that. So
it leaves it more flexible. You're right, Paul.
I think you're more flexible without putting this fence in, but you could still have the games, you know, going on. And if, depending on, do the boosters use these fields? Does anyone know if
Yes.
Because what I'm thinking
is, does too.
If these are games for like little kids, right? Like, I don't know exactly what age, but you could keep these probably going at the same time if this was like a T-ball game or something like that, where you don't have to worry about, hey, is this field going to hit one so far it's going to hit like an outfielder in the back of the head? I mean, that's the reason I was thinking the fence, but my preference would be to just not actually put the fence in, but to keep the 2 fields.
I agree with what Paul's saying. That makes a great deal of sense.
Okay. Makes sense to me too.
Yeah. Lighting.
Yep. So in the CIP, you know, lighting and fencing, there's $15,000 set aside for lighting improvements. Obviously, the current lighting down there is inadequate, is old. So, I mean, that's another thing that, you know, obviously we're not going to have enough money to do baseball level lighting, right? I mean, it's just not on the cards for that. But You know, we also don't want to have baseball games going on at 10 o'clock at night. So, I mean, when it comes to lighting, what was the intention from the board for lighting for this park?
Well, it's gone through a lot of different iterations from what used to be the high school football field, right? And that's what the big poles and the big lighting scaffolds were, and that's been brought down. But the only things that are really open at night or take place after dark in there are the skating.
Mm-hmm.
We really, you know, Boosters is done with all their stuff at dark everywhere. But same in the fall with the kids. That would be the only one to check with there, is if there's an issue with them needing light in the fall. But as a general rule, the park isn't an after dark park.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, the money that we would save by eliminating that outfield fence, we can certainly put towards a like 4 lighting standards next to the permanent hockey boards, where, like you said, Pat, at night, they are even, you know, we could even, like if we do 4 lighting standards, one on kind of each corner of the boards, on the ones on the far south, we could put a light directed towards the permanent hockey facility, and we could direct a light towards the ice skating rink as well. So, absolutely. Yep.
That'd be the most congested area anyway.
Yeah. I was going to say that's nice because, you know, the sun sets so early in, you know, December, January. So any lighting we could get in on these guys, I think, is really a plus. So,
yeah.
Okay. Perfect. So I guess, you know, I'm
sorry for being tongue-tied. Are you going to do any change planning to do any change to the exterior shape of the park to enhance parking in any way? Is that something we need to consider or not?
Yes. I just don't think the money is there to do it on that far east side along 10th. Yeah. If we could do a curb cut into the park and do diagonal parking. I believe it was on the original. No, it wasn't on the original plan, but that would be a viable. Yeah, right there, Paul, where your cursor is. Like, curb cut in, and do, like I said, diagonal parking. The other thing too is, you know, sidewalks on the far north side. There really is no sidewalk. There is nothing there. So, you know, a person's walking down St. Croix and they come to the park and there's no continuation of facility there. So it would be kind of nice to include that facility on that far north side.
I don't have an objection. That makes total sense as well.
Is it, Mike, are you kind of thinking like you want to just kind of do it in stages? So we would kind of get these basic elements and the hockey boards first and some of the lighting, and then maybe down the road we would look at parking or something like that.
Yeah, I do. I mean, you know, if there's funding that becomes available because a project comes in lower, you know, kind of like we did with Walnut Street, right? I mean, that project was able to move forward because the bid on the street maintenance project came in low. So, I mean, this would just be one of those projects that we could earmark if we have some leftover monies from a different project where we could include some parking, right? I think
it just keeps us from putting an element where it's going to be in the way in the future.
Yeah. And obviously, I mean, we can plan it. We can install that baseball field in the northeast corner in such a way that down the road, when monies become available, that we could certainly install some parking along there.
Would you want the parking on the north side here? It looks like there's more room almost over here under this plan. I
don't know that they want that much parking on St. Croix Street. That's what we're trying to
get it. Because it's busier up there.
Yep.
Okay.
Well, for my 2 cents, when my kids used to play there, I'd never park on that block because of a foul ball or, you know, even a hockey puck. Butting parking right up to some of these isn't, you know, we might have some really nice spaces, but I'd be concerned about foul balls and flying pucks.
So that being said, do we want to take a look at the southern border? Thanks, Paul. And if that is scooched to the north, the ability to put in parking along there in the future might give us the better location.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, makes sense.
You know, from whereas cursor is moving there.
And we don't I mean, diagonal takes up a lot of space into the park. We can do parallel parking where you're not having to go as far into the park too.
Yeah.
Obviously you don't get as many stalls, but if we're concerned about spacing, that's an option.
Well, and let's see how usage is going to dictate what we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
No, we want to kind of be conscious of it when we place our elements, that we don't put something where we're later going to regret it or have to spend money the second time.
Right.
So, Mike, are you looking for a motion tonight?
Yeah, I guess I'm just looking for a motion to approve the updated layout minus the elements. Yep. I
would motion to approve, but I don't want it to have that outfield fence in there. So if we can make a note of that, I would approve the layout as is, but not with this outfield fence in it.
I'd second.
Any further discussion on that, or anybody not clear about any part of it? If not, all those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Great. Okay, the Lacrosse Association has approached us wanting to use Burton. I don't see any conflict in any way at that, but you know what might be a better place for them is the old hospital site.
That's what I told them.
That big flat up there. You know, It's not heavily used now in any way. It'd be perfect.
I agree.
No conflicts. Anybody else got a thought on that? I don't mean to.
Well, I know the tennis association is approached me, and they're thinking about. Some people are thinking about maybe that as a potential tennis court area in the future. Nothing's really been. There's been like no groundwork, so it's not a formal thing.
We can't, based on the grant restrictions on that property when we did the swap, we can't build anything like that there.
Oh,
but you can, you know, what the lacrosse folks, it's a temporary. They're not installing, they're just having fun on the surface.
Yeah. And this is actually a temporary request because their field space that they use for their events was the school, and school has, not allowed any practices or any gatherings on their grounds, and they're just looking for a temporary home until that restriction is lifted.
Oh.
So is the temporary home just this summer, Mike? Is that kind of?
Yeah, I would foresee it just being this summer. Yeah.
And you have a porta potty right up there normally anyway.
Mm-hmm.
By that pavilion, and there's water there. It would be a good place for them to go and have all kinds of space.
Yeah. So are you kind of talking about where Prospect Park is, kind of the upper level?
Yeah.
That's where you're like that big grass space in there, kind of?
Yep, that's where the hospital used to sit.
Okay. Yeah, I think that could work too.
Okay.
This construction doesn't happen until the fall, though, right? Is what you're thinking, Mike?
Yeah, because I want to be cognizant of the people that are going to be using the facility this summer. I don't want to, especially since they haven't been able to use anything up to this point, I don't want to all of a sudden tear it up and then people got to get outside too, right? So yeah, I'm going to try and work within their schedules as much as we can while still completing the project.
I mean, I don't have anything against the lacrosse stuff here, but I think you're right. It might be better at Prospect this with more room.
Yeah, okay. There's a lot more room.
Parking as well, I think, is up there. So.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, I don't really need a formal motion on that. I'll just relay that information to the Lacrosse Association, just saying that Park Board discussed and highly recommends the use of the old hospital site up at Prospect Park. That'll be fine.
Okay. The next item that was in the agenda was our lifeguards down at Prospect Park. And
lakefront. Yep.
I mean, lakefront. I'm still caught back there. I'm old. Don't pick on me. But it's a real concern, and it's like you pointed out in your packet, Mike. It's hard to get people and to fill those slots.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just, I did broach this topic with Aaron, and I don't want to put the lifeguards in a position where, let's just say, it's a weekend and there's going to be weekends like this in the summer where it's 80, 90 degrees and people are going to come down there. And unfortunately, it's some people don't follow the guidelines that were put in place by St. Croix County. And I just don't want to put the lifeguards in a position where they're having to enforce that, because I don't think that's fair to them to have 16-year-old staff try and police people's behaviors. Mm-hmm. And then on top of that, like Pat said, I mean, it is becoming more and more of a challenge to find qualified lifeguards to fill the necessary time slots. So, it's my recommendation to post the signage just like you have at Perch Lake or the beach down at Kinnickinnick, or, we have a beach out at the end of the Dike Road without any lifeguards, but mm-hmm. post the signage, just saying that the swimmers are there at their own risk. Yeah. So that's my recommendation, at least for 2020. And then we can revisit in 2021.
We'll have the ropes and everything else in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been down to the beach a couple times already with my kids, and it's actually working pretty well. People, this last weekend were social distancing kind of in groups and swimming, and parents were, watching kids really well, and kids weren't going out real far because there's really no markers there. So just what I observed, it seemed like it was working as you're thinking. Yeah.
Good.
Mike, were you going to say something? Sorry.
No.
No, okay. I think Kennedy.
No, I was just saying, I think that's a good idea, especially for this year. So
yeah.
Do you need a motion?
On that?
Yeah.
You need a formal motion for it?
Yeah, it'd be nice.
All right, I'll make a motion to open lakefront beach without lifeguard staff for the 2020 season.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Okay. Everyone received the current policy in the packet. I believe the letter from the alderman, I'm brain dead, Randy Morissette, on what the thought was behind the policy when it went in 2009. Paul was kind enough to get the policies from Woodbury and Cottage Grove.
Minneapolis.
Oh, excuse me. I'll throw it open for people's discussion as to what it's a new world. It's our current park board. It's your park. How do you think it should be done? Do we want to make a change? The change, as I currently read and had it pointed out to me, the way the definitions are today, it prohibits it being just a John Q. Public memorial. That individual has to have some historic or social significance to the community, which would preclude, the request we've had from the individual to want to do a bench down in the park, which has opened up this for discussion. So, Mike, what have feedback can you give that you've been given from the mayor and from council members and Aaron?
Mm-hmm. So obviously, there's a number of benches of individuals that have been placed throughout our parks here over the last 10 to 15 years. And This was brought to the forefront due to the bench up in Prospect Park last summer. And, like you said, Pat, it's the original policy was written to try to not overwhelm our park system with memorials. And, there's not a lack of seating in our parks at this point. So, I mean, I do understand, Paul, your point as far as like, a bench is good for the park, so on and so forth. And I guess, it's up to the board for discussion. Ultimately, it's what I put in my issue sheet is you can make any recommended changes. I do recommend going to Planning Commission because they are in the current policy, and I want to have them weigh in on it before it goes to council for if it's deemed necessary. So I guess I'll open it up, Paul, if you want to chime in and explain your thoughts.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm not aware of the email that you guys got from Alderperson Morissette. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you did. Okay.
I don't have that one, but here's my thinking on it. We have families that have lost loved ones that want to memorialize them in some way. And we have a city that could use, I think, more trees or more benches or whatever we want. I actually just see this as a win-win. I see this as a win for the family, and I see this as a win for the city because we've got private individuals who are basically allowed to pay for park improvements for trees. And so we don't have to worry, I think, as much about capital improvement. I think it helps our budget as a city. I just see it as a win-win. I'm not sure what the aversion is to doing it. I know there's, Mike, maybe the nervousness of if we get too many, what do we do? I sent you the Minneapolis policy and I sent you the Woodbury policy because I think those are two cities that are saying, yeah, we are open to this. We encourage it. The city can set any parameters, right? So if you've read any of those policies that went out, I know I apologize for being kind of late on it today, but the city can set the parameters on what we want. We're not talking about necessarily huge memorials. The Minneapolis only allows either a new bench, a refurbished bench, or a tree, period. So I think the city can set the parameters and say, we're not talking about huge structures. We're not talking about big fountains, right? We're talking about very simple stuff like trees. Trees would probably be the main one. So I just see it as a really a win-win. But a lot of that's where I'm coming from. I also think that I think it gives people an outlet to grieve, and I think that's a positive thing. So I just think it can be a really helpful thing for the city. I think we do have to be careful with our wording. I haven't come with any prepared language tonight because I'm not anticipating this is the final product tonight. I would really like to hear all the park board weigh in and their thoughts. But that's kind of where I'm coming from. I really see it as an asset to the city and also as a healing thing for families. So I'm thinking other cities are doing it well. Why can't we? So let's kind of figure it out. So that's kind of really what my impetus is with getting this on the agenda and trying to get us to really think more deeply about it tonight.
My only 2 cents I would add to Paul's is that giving them the opportunity to put, if we're already long on benches already, but we have benches that aren't someone else's memorial, if they wanted to put their name on that particular bench, could be done. Or if we wanted to add a value to other projects, something in the park that they could, that have a value to it, that if they wanted to make a $5,000 contribution towards the boards and the redo of the hockey program in Burton Park, well, there's nothing wrong with that being Tom Smith's memorial. I don't see where we, like Paul was saying, it's a win-win. I don't see where that is necessarily a lose to it. But that's my opinion. Yeah.
The one thing that, just to play devil's advocate and just, make you think about this is, whenever we receive a memorial request, since I've been here, it's always been Lakefront Park for the most part, maybe just one in Prospect. But we don't want to inundate Lakefront Park with memorial benches, right? I mean,
No, it has to be in our park plan. They can choose one that's already in our plan and hasn't been put in yet.
That's what I was thinking. If we have like predetermined locations,
you bet.
I know it might take a lot of work, but if we have some predetermined locations, and once that, because what I don't want to happen is over a 20 to 30 year period, we have an extra 100 memorial benches, because we get probably, 4, 5, 6 requests every year, and they're just lined up along the trail on Lakefront Park overlooking the water, because that's, obviously that's a natural location because it's such a beautiful park and a beautiful location, but we don't want it to turn into, a memorial grounds per se. But I guess that's just my opinion.
That's a very legitimate concern.
I think I like the idea of a pre-approved, like if we're looking to decide where we want trees or benches, and have those and have people be able to pick, like if you have them, where they want them. I think I do like the idea, Paul. I think it's a great way for families to put things out there for their loved ones and to grieve. So I love the idea. I understand the concerns, but I think if we do, like we pick, or not we, but we have a plan on where things should be or where we want things to be, and give them the opportunity to choose from where the preset
from our list. Yeah.
I love that idea, actually.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying I think the city and the city staff has basically total control of this. It's however we would set it up exactly, and say that's what, if you look through, I forget it was the Woodbury or Minneapolis one, but they basically said, you don't get to choose where it is. Basically, it's at the discretion of the city. But I like your idea, Karen, that if there was a more of a overall plan, or like a wish list or something like that, and then we kind of fill that up. And the other thing that was interesting, I think it was the Minneapolis plan, says every 10 years, the person that purchased it first has the right of first refusal, meaning if they want to re-up their donation to the city, they'll, continue with that plaque maybe on the bench or the tree or whatever. But after that, other people could do it too. So it could be an ongoing source of income in a sense for the parks, which I really like. So,
well, and maintenance, it would really help with the maintenance of everything that way.
Mike, what do you think about the plan thing? Like if there was if you had a wish list, so to speak, for the different parks?
Yeah, I mean, that would be more palatable, where we, between staff and the board, come up with basically a memorial plan for each park. I mean, a bench location up at Berkmos, or a number of them in Prospect or White Camp, so on and so forth. And then when that spot is taken,
table in Williams Park.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So to try and spread it out, because like I said before, it's overwhelmingly it's Lakefront Park, right? And I don't want to inundate that park to the point where people aren't able to enjoy it, and all they see are benches and tables memorializing.
It's not a cemetery.
Yeah. That's my only concern. So I think having a plan in place is a good start.
And same with the trees, right? Like you'd give them options, because I like the tree idea a lot.
Yeah, I agree.
And when I look at the plans, and I mean, even like when you're looking at this plan, you have a lot of, in this original one, you could look and plan out how you want that to be. I could see that being a win-win.
Okay.
So Mike, do you want us to come up with some wording that you take to planning, or do you want me to bring it up at planning from parks for just general discussion and get their feeling of it? And at the next meeting, then we can start the process for language?
I think to save some time, staff time, I would like to get planning commission's input on this change.
Yeah.
I don't want to go out and create a master plan of memorials throughout the entire park system.
No. No, let's find out if planning's going to say yes or no first.
Yeah. Is that fair, Paul, Mike, and Karen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is. I think somebody from Park Board has to be an advocate there to sort of.
That's me.
Yeah. So they understand kind of why we're looking for this, or how it can be an asset for the city. So.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then we come back to them with a proposal that says what we want it to say, and we know that they're going to approve it.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. You're kind of taking the temperature of the planning commission in a sense.
Yeah.
Well, they've got to approve it after it leaves us. So.
Okay.
We don't know what verbiage we're going to use yet. So between now and our next meeting, we don't have planning tonight, but we'll have planning in 2 weeks. We'll be able to take their pulse on that. And then at our meeting, we can actually draft something that we send on to planning to approve and on to the council to approve. Does that make sense, Mike? And then you can do your grand design once it's gone through the approval process.
Sure. Yep. And I'll have the park board help out on that design, that plan.
Yeah, but I don't think you have to have that plan when you go to council.
Okay.
And Pat, I'm happy to help with any wording. Why
don't you draft something, Paul? You've got those other.
Do you want me to send something to you guys first? Like send everyone on the park board or something?
Yeah. That would be great.
Okay.
That'd be wonderful.
And then do we want to look at it at our next meeting? I guess part of me says it might be good if we get a sense of what we're talking about, something written down before we bring it. Is that all right with you guys?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Would be great.
So I'll email some thoughts to Deb on the language based on the current one, I think, and just like what paragraphs we would have to change or whatnot. So
yeah.
Okay. Happy to.
Thank you. Thank you. I think the next item.
Project updates.
Yeah. Is yours, Michael?
All right. Yeah. So I'll fire off here a number of them. The Walnut Street reconstruct wrapped up. We did final measurements for estimating. I got the invoice today. So if you haven't had a chance, swing down to the Hudson Arch and take a peek at it. I think it turned out really nice. I've received a lot of good comments on the way it looks. It really sharpens up that entry into the park and onto the Toll Bridge Road. So much needed addition to the community.
I want to say thank you, Mike, for that, because it looks fantastic, and I know you really were an advocate for that. And it's like night and day down there off Walnut now. So thank you.
Yep, it really does.
Yeah. Good. COVID-19 operations staff. We started opening up restrooms last week. We started down in Lakefront Park, the boat launch, White Camp Park, hitting up kind of more of our main facilities right now. The concern and kind of why we're staggering is supplies are in short order. We have a stockpile, but it's only going to last for so long. And just the sheer number of people that are using the facilities. I mean, there's a lot of people down on Lakefront Park on the weekend. So, we'll continue to kind of stagger openings here over the next couple of weeks. I know we're going to be opening up Grandview Park because Hudson boosters are going to start utilizing the fields up at Grandview Park for some practices. They did submit a plan to myself for kind of some review and approval in-house on how they're going to socially distance and kind of run their operations while still adhering to the St. Croix County guidelines. And they're limiting their, the people on an individual field to 12 to 15 people max. And there's no games scheduled at this time, no tournaments at this time, until the St. Croix County kind of rescinds on their restrictions. Then we'll start kind of going into phase 2, phase 3, so on and so forth. So between, the facilities opening up and the organizations utilizing our facilities, that's kind of what's happening in the parks right now. One thing that I want to touch base on is because of the park restrooms not opening up when they typically do, which is kind of early May, about a month ago. We've had to kind of put porta potties throughout the city, a lot more than we typically have in the past. Usually we only have about 6 on hand throughout the city, a couple on the Dyke Road, Corky's Pier, so on and so forth. But because we've had to increase that number, we're up to about 15, 16 porta johns here for the month of May, just to kind of cover the restrooms being down. So obviously that was an unexpected expenditure that we foresaw. So There might be a couple areas where we've seen porta potties in the past that might not have them this year just due to the budget restrictions and the fact that we've had to have so many out and about up to this point. Now, obviously, as we start opening up restrooms, we can start giving those porta potties back. It's all supply and staffing, right? I mean, the other thing too is it's hard to find staff that want to go into a public restroom during a COVID-19 pandemic and clean public restrooms. So as you can imagine, it's pretty challenging to find people that want to do that right now. So between the staff, supplies, it's the balancing act for the Parks Department right now. And then obviously we're just being very conservative on our spending. We're not out of the woods yet. There's some concern over some of the revenues coming in, non-taxable revenues coming to the cities, and the fact that the county's looking at possible tax deferred payments for 2020. So I've been instructed by the city administrator to really cut back on a lot of our spending. So, reducing some of the field treatments, limiting some of the seasonal staff, having full-timers pick up some of those duties that we typically had seasonal staff do. So like I said, it's a challenging summer up to this point.
Yeah. Parks look good. I haven't heard any complaints. And like I was saying to some of the group earlier before we got going, I had a lot of compliments from people with how good the parks feel. They not only look nice and everything else, but it feels real good to be down there, that people are practicing, like Paul said, social distancing, that the police have a presence.
Yeah. And then the last thing I'll touch base on are the boat launch operations. So I did touch base with both engineering today. They did bring forward a couple of preliminary designs. So the intent is to kind of, the finishing touches on those before it's presented to Park Board, but our intention is to bring those designs to the July Park Board meeting for review and discussion. And then obviously the boat launch this summer, this spring has just been unbelievable. I mean, the amount of people utilizing that facility. I don't know what the record is for revenue. Maybe Deb can look in years past, but I could wager that it's just going to get smashed. I mean, it's just amazing. Even during the week, the launch is full. So it's been good to see, and it's like you said, Pat, it's just nice to see people out and about using the facilities and the river, and that's what it's there for. With no youth sports going on, no concerts, no professional sports, no festivities, community festivals. It's being in the parks and next to the water is one of the next best things. So
yeah, we're really fortunate.
Yep. And then last thing, and then I'll stop. Concerts in the parks. Common Council had a meeting last night where they discussed special events, and as part of that discussion, a lot of the special events that were scheduled for the month of June and July have been canceled, including Hudson Boosters, River City Corral. Riverfest has really cut back on their festivities. And so, keeping in line with the county guidelines, we're not looking at doing any concerts in the parks. We're looking at least through the month of June, if not trickling into July, and probably trying to reassess where we move in August, because when it comes to August, there's a lot of big events going on in town. Minnesota Orchestra, Badger Gopher Run, that's 5,000 people. So hopefully we'll get, as the weeks go on, we kind of get some updated guidelines from the county where we can start to have maybe some concerts in the parks and having some bigger events later on this fall.
Okay. Anybody have anything for future agendas?
I think if I can get some language out to you guys to look over, I think we should look at that for the memorial policy next meeting.
Great. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion carried. Thank you, Mike and Deb. Staff, thank all of you for participating in the meeting. Be safe.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.